Welcome to Understanding the Unhoused. My name is Joshua. Through a series of interviews with individuals who are experiencing homelessness, my intention with this podcast is to increase compassion and empathy for the unhoused. Though the terms homeless and unhoused can be used interchangeably, I prefer unhoused because it emphasizes that the problem is a lack of affordable housing rather than a personal weakness. When people see an unhoused individual, they can feel fear, anger, apathy, sometimes all three. My hope is after hearing their stories, hearing what it's like for them on a day-to-day basis, it will make it clearer that these are just people. People who, through a combination of bad luck, bad choices, and, let's be honest, a broken system, have found themselves without a roof over their heads. Okay, enough ado. I first met Kelly from Grow about a week after moving from Concord to San Francisco. I came back to Concord for a picnic being put on to honor the memory of the unhoused who have passed away in the last few years. And Kelly was there holding court. I introduced myself, we got to talking, and I found out about her amazing organization called Grow. Grassroots Outreach Warriors, a group that I would have volunteered with wholeheartedly if I had any inclination of their existence when I lived in Concord. Her and her partner in crime, Andi, started the organization to help the homeless in and around the Concord area. And I felt like they would be a great interview for this podcast in the hopes that people listening maybe will get inspired to start something of their own in their area. It doesn't take much, just an open heart and a bit of free time. This is the first interview that will be in two parts because the length of the conversation was so long, and I vow to never have an episode longer than a half an hour. So part two will be put up in a couple of weeks, but please enjoy part one of my interview with Kelly and Andi of Grow.
Kelly and Andi, thank you very much for talking to me today.
Thank you for having us.
I have so many questions about Grow, but before I get into those, I really want to ask you both, because this is the first interview I've done for the podcast since the disastrous ruling by the Supreme Court of Johnson versus Grant passed. And I'm just curious to hear both of your takes on it, if there is one.
Yeah, thank you. I am really devastated by that ruling. To make homelessness criminal to me, and to put a burden on humans that obviously can't shoulder that burden or help themselves in that capacity, is just so unfair. It's just so cruel. Reading some of these things, cities are already imposing fines and levying fines on people, like $300 for sitting in public space, to someone who has possibly a blanket wrapped over their shoulder to their name, and that's it. And I don't know what the expectation is, if that's what they think is going to solve the problem. They are far from being correct.
To me, it's baffling that they could take this problem that has everything to do with so many other things than necessarily the person, so many other systemic things, and just make it the person's fault and then put them in jail.
Put them in jail,
which are already overcrowded. Like, how is it going to help? Either of you have an idea, a prediction of what could happen because of this? Like, I have many thoughts, but
I have a lot of thoughts. I try not to. Kelly tries to keep me from going down rabbit holes, because the thoughts that I have are definitely not positive. But it also opens up some questions for providers like us as to what can we do that can change the temperature on things like that, at least where we are. And that's what we have to focus on. I don't know. I know someplace the Grants Pass, I can't imagine. I think that's just, people there are going to be so sorry that they've done this, because it's going to create tenfold more problems.
Yeah. it's just going to make things worse. And yeah, it's really baffling. All of their decisions.
And I also feel that because like I've known, people who really should not have gotten a ticket, like literally are unable to take care of themselves. Thank goodness we were able to help them get sheltered. But they give them tickets, and like it's not that easy. Once you get a ticket and go into the whole thing and not even having a cell phone to your name,
right.
What are you supposed to do? And then now you have that on your record, and it just keeps adding up and adding up. And then the homeless people, to me, seem to not trust the police and stuff, where, they're just doing their job. I understand it. But there's no answers. You can't just criminalize someone and not give them any options.
Right, exactly. That's the thing. It's the lack of option that makes my brain hurt so very much. Like, what are they supposed to do now? I don't know. It is a rabbit hole, you're right. So, I want to go back to a more formal process here. Can you both say your name so listeners can identify each of you, please?
Sure. My name is Kelly McKinley.
And my name is Andi Altman.
Thank you very much. Okay. So GROW, Grassroots Outreach Warriors. First and foremost, I love that name so much. How did you guys meet, and how did you come to the decision that this is what you wanted to do?
So I am permanently disabled, and I was able to find myself a job as a lunch guard at my son's school. And during that time, I realized that they were getting rid of like 20 pounds of apples a week because we were just coming out of the pandemic and everything was contaminated if it was looked at. And so I took it home, I washed it, and I had a gentleman, Jack Sleeman, that I followed on Facebook, and he would go out and feed 70 different people, 7 days a week. And physically I wasn't able to do that. Well, there was a big sweep February of 2022, and so he said, hey, there's some friends, down Clayton Road. Can you go help them out? And so sure, no problem. All these people, and I'm like, you guys are cool people. Let me come back here tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, and I'm going to bring you food. So I just went in my fridge, and I found hot dogs, a can of chili, some cheese, and that night I fed about 6 people.
Nice.
It was awesome, and I just felt so good about it because my pantry was full, and my family was picky, and so they didn't really eat too much, and these people were so appreciative. So, I started doing that, and then I posted on Facebook. I was doing $10 meals. I was able to, for $10, feed a dozen people. People would send me $10.
Wow.
Start putting it out there more, and then people were like, hey, I have extra food, or I want to start cooking. And 3 months into it, Andi messages me up and is like, go ahead, Andi, do you want to take over?
I just asked her if she needed some help doing this, and she said, sure, come meet me. We met in a parking lot locally. Fed people. The stores were not that appreciative that we were there and drawing a crowd, and more food came, which drew more people. And then people asked us what we were doing, and it started turning into like a parade. Some nights when it was hot in the summer, we'd have 5 or 6 cars deep waiting for us to empty their trunks of cold water or some food or whatever.
Wow.
Neighbors would see us, which didn't help us in that private parking lot, so we did have to move. But we did end up in a city park, and with a lot more cooks and a lot more people to help serve and volunteer and do things. And it evolved from the 3 to 6 people a night to a dozen people a night to now at some nights we can get as many as 60 people to serve dinner to.
Wow.
And still completely volunteers. All volunteer work, all volunteer effort, all public, donations from private citizens. We're a public charity, and we take donations, but we have never taken any public money yet. So we can operate kind of the way we like to, and that draws the crowd. Kelly
That's great.
is the linchpin there. She's the one who has her hands out, holding, waiting for people to grab on and go for a positive journey and ride. And she, turn things around, and it works. That method works.
So how did it grow from that? Like, how did you say, okay, let's do this, let's make it a nonprofit, all of that?
A lot of our donors asked that if they were to give us more significant sums, not a lot of money, but more significant sums, if they could take a write-off. Well, as just a neighborhood grassroots group, we couldn't. And then we ran into a friend of Kelly's who had started a corporation that was a 501c3 that had a charter to serve the same population that we're serving.
Oh, wow.
And she had never operated because the pandemic hit right when she created the corporation and got chartered as a 501c3. And she said, here, guys, let's do this. And we right away had that. We had to do a lot of admin work, transferred over. So we created our own name, our own presence, and transferred the name and changed the name with the Secretary of State and became Grow and started to build our identity. And that's how we did it. We saved a year for our donors, not for us. We never stopped working, but we saved a year for our donors to be able to have a deduction and become a charity, which also opened doors for us to be able to get other services and products from other organizations.
Of course, yeah. You can get grants easier and it's just easier when you have that behind you, absolutely.
It is. You can get a lot more food from other organizations and other kinds of donations as well. So
that is awesome. And you're based out of Concord. Can you actually tell our listeners where you serve food also? I think that's important for people to know.
So we serve at Cal Park, on Cal Road on Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays from 4 to 5. And then at Baldwin Park, off Port Chicago, on Sunday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays from 4 to 5. I noticed at the beginning also, Andy and I, we like to try to fix holes in the system. We noticed one of the biggest holes was laundry. We couldn't get enough donations to keep them clean. So we actually have been starting a laundry program that's been going on for about a year and a half, where a lot of people are, becoming responsible for their own, laundry, which is great for us. We don't have to keep begging for clothes. Another service that we did start and, are looking to hopefully get more donors for is our shower program, where we rent hotel rooms at local showers until the city allows the room until we're able to get a mobile unit available to have more access for showers, because we're seeing a big difference in people from just starting off feeding them to giving them the opportunity to clean their clothes, to give themselves baths or showers, without judgment. We are kind of without judgment. And then people will start the conversation about, hey, I want to get into a program. And so, we see where things are broken and we're like, yeah, let's do it. We'll help you. We'll get you in there. And so we've actually started a sober program, and we've been doing, trying to get scholarship money for these ladies that we just happened, to meet at meals, and just over the years just started a rapport and, just giving people an option who want to try, showing them that there are people that could help them try, makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it does.
And that's starting to spread. A lot of people, are just so hopeless, and, don't, just trying to survive the day to day. We try to also show them that, there is a tomorrow, and we will be there, and we'll have food, and, hey, you want to take this scary step, we'll be right there with you. And you fail, that's okay. We'll still be there. You want to try again? Let's do it. And we've actually had some really good success stories of people staying clean. We have groups that go to meetings together nightly. So that's been interesting, seeing the progression of just starting off with food and then letting people know that if you want to try, I'll be there for you.
Yeah.
It's really come full circle.
leads me to a question. In your experience, and you guys have been doing this for 2 years now, I think?
Almost 2.5.
Yes, 2.5.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah.
When it comes to addiction, have you found with the people that you've worked with that the addiction was in place and that is maybe what led them to being homeless, or has it come after homelessness in order to deal with the traumas and just the day-to-day health of being homeless?
Right. For just what I see, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any degrees or anything, it seems like it's self-medicated. And a lot of stories that I have heard others go through, it makes sense that there's an addiction in place, or, under-medicated or non-medicated and need, some kind of help. It's, it's easier, it's cheaper, unfortunately, to get street drugs.
Yeah.
And then you just get in a vicious circle, and then you don't realize that there is there's a different way out there, and, just finding the right people to help you get there. But a lot of the time it's self-medicating for something deeper down.
Well, we definitely see a huge increase in addiction once people are on the street. You don't find that many people today, unless they're staying within their family unit, that are not addicted to something and they're on the street. And a lot of them are there.
Definitely was a gateway. Yeah.
Well, and addictions are, a lot of people will use products like meth to stay alert, to protect themselves during the hours of the day where they feel most vulnerable. And then they have to use something else to calm anxiety. So a lot of the drugs are medications to get through the day, survival, so they are able to process things somewhat. But Kelly alludes to a lot of people that are on the street also have a dual diagnosis, and they may have never been diagnosed with any kind of mental condition, and they self-medicated, and that's dangerous.
You guys are working with people. How are you working with SLEs to get folks into there? Like, is that a relationship you already had in the first place, or are you just like kind of a go-between?
So, there's a little bit of a process to get into it when you have state insurance, and just, holding somebody responsible and telling them the steps that they have to call the county and, get access. And then, so just also word of mouth, working with other companies, some of the people that we have, I call them angels, our volunteers, have had 25 years sober and have gone through the program. So a lot of it's word of mouth and talking to people who've been there. So that's a lot what we go by. Also, finding out the good and the bad of all of it, and, going through it ourselves, and, would we stay there? And, if they're there and there's a problem, and, there's people that'll help you, or help figure out who can help you. We like to be a go-between between the resources, kind of just like a warm hand through the process, but holding the person responsible for doing the process themselves.
That's good.
We work with a lot of case managers and public health nurses also within the county, and other organizations, not just county employees, but other organizations, rehab programs, et cetera. And they know if their client needs sponsorship to stay at an SLE, because once someone is usually discharged from rehab, they're discharged. They're not, if they don't have money, they're usually discharged right to the street corner. Right. So we don't want them back on the street. So case managers do reach out to us on a regular basis and ask us if we can help them find other financial means for these individuals to go right into a sober home.
That's beautiful. Wow. Yeah, because that's the biggest problem. You can get to rehab, but then what do you do after that? Right?
That's the gap. That's one
Sometimes
of the first
it's just detox and you're out.
Yeah.
Yep. We got calls from people Friday night at 10 o'clock. I'm in front of the rehab place or in front of the detox facility. What do I do? I'm like, uh-oh. We need to put you somewhere. We can't let you go back to the encampment because that's just not the right answer.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So finding the diamonds in the rough and helping them succeed. And it's really, it's showing and it just starts with food. During the pandemic, they turned off all the water faucets on Clayton Road and then locked up all the dumpsters. So people were unable to forage or even get water. There's only 2 porta potties in Concord. There's nowhere to use the bathroom, and just everybody's just one paycheck away from being homeless too. We do have a lot of people that are on fixed income for disabilities and don't have family support, and now they're living in a car, and and they're not on drugs and they're not on alcohol, and they're just in their own thing there. So there's a lot of different levels also of homelessness that we're finding. And those are the really hard ones to find places for, the ones that are sober.
Oh, really?
And do have, because there's no place, you can't afford it,
Right.
Disability, you don't get that much a month. And, if you don't check all the boxes, it's hard to get a lot of opportunity that others can get.
It makes sense, but it's also, well, it kind of leads into a question I had for later, but this works. What do you think could be done to make the system that's in place to help people now better? What do you think what would start to make it better, at least?
Andy, do you want to take that one?
I do. I have a personal opinion. I don't know too many people that may agree with me, but I think it's housing first. I believe that people that are unhoused at the moment need to be sheltered in some way, shape, or form, and not in a criminal way. Given a place of residence where they can lock a door and have some privacy and live. And I'm watching models from all over the country where things are done, and what they did in Houston really intrigues me, where they kind of did that. They reached out to all different nonprofits and faith-based organizations and converted every type of empty vacant building from commercial to private, to residential, and turned them into small units with common kitchens, etc., like dorms, but everybody had a place to go, and they found that with wraparound resources that were accessible to these residents, that 10 to 15 times more resources were utilized, as opposed to, so it gives people the opportunity to know that they can go out and get help and then come home and absorb whatever help they got and do it again. And it's, as opposed to, and not worry about, especially with the court case, worry about being seen at night, ticketed, or arrested.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm not saying it's a right or a privilege, but it's a necessary, I don't know what that would be. I'm not a legal scholar, but it's a necessary human need to be sheltered.
Sheltered, to have some form of safety and feel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To heal,
Okay, each of you, if you could, talk about your first experience with a homeless situation. A homeless person, unhoused person, however it can be referred to. I've heard people get downright angry about referring to the people as unhoused, but
right. It's hard to find a word for it. Unsheltered and address.
Schools say without an address. Yeah,
that's a pretty good one.
For me, it was a few years ago, and my best friend at the time, I don't know, I know she, was having she had trauma growing up, and she was in a toxic marriage, and she ended up turning to meth, and that led to her living in her car. And so then I was like, she was how wonderful it is and how they all get together, and she made it sound great. So I actually did not have a good outlook on homeless. And then watching Jack Fleeman and what he did and the stories he would start telling about the people, and, realizing, I've always been pretty much one paycheck away. And, God, I have a family, just, you never know. And then just getting out there and talking to people and getting to know them. And, I felt more comfortable, I feel more comfortable hanging out with the homeless people than I do dressed up and going out on night on a town.
Yeah.
Not me. I feel, more real, and also just the resilience that's out there is mind blowing.
It really is.
People who've been out there for 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
It's, mind blowing. And, some people, shelter's not necessarily a place for them. They're more feral, and walls are scary, and, being outside is different. So shelters are also, finding somebody's shelters also looks very different for people too.
Yeah.
A lot of people that I do see, I do feel if they were able to get the right mental support, to go help through trauma or whatever they went through.
Yeah.
That's so important. But, we helped a few that were able to get on medication, but, big thing on the street is, stealing somebody's stuff. And so, their medicines, their bags would keep getting stolen, and it's hard to try, especially, you go to the doctor and there's only 2 pharmacies and you don't have a car. It's really hard to walk, across town to get your prescription, and then, it just got stolen.
Yeah.
So even access to mental health and antidepressants, that would be huge.
Yes, it would.
Start. There's just so many levels, but the outpour of volunteers and donations we get is amazing. Because homelessness or addiction touches someone at some time in their life. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a family member or a friend, everyone can relate to it, and, kindness without judgment. We're not trying to save you. We're just trying to show you that there's people out there who want to see you succeed.
There you go. That's nice. Andy, what do you got?
My first experience with homelessness was, I'm going to say, about 60 years ago. I grew up in Philadelphia, and on the weekends, my dad used to work at his office downtown and catch up. He was a CPA then, and he caught up on work, and I loved to go with him because I love to play with those old calculators. I had to punch the numbers in and pull the little thing down and it all popped back up. I'm dating myself here, but yes. And when we went to this building, it was the tallest building in Philadelphia at the time. And it was the only one allowed to be taller than Billy Penn's hat on City Hall. But there was a gentleman always sitting outside the front door of that building. And my dad introduced me to him, and we would always go get him a sandwich and coffee and some snacks and stuff and bring it to him. My dad would sit down next to him and talk to him for a few minutes, and I'd learn his story, and, he was always there, and every weekend, and it got to the point where I loved to make things. I would go with my dad just so I could cook something or put something together and take him some food just to sit and talk with him. And my dad would let me sit outside and talk with this guy for hours while he was up in his office working.
Wow.
And I just felt really, really safe. And then I didn't have much experience other than visually with homelessness. I'd lived in San Francisco for a long time and worked with a couple organizations there to try to help people as well. But when I moved into Santa Rosa, I became more involved with organizations that worked with the homeless. And it turned out that one of the larger sanctioned encampments, a managed encampment, was built right across the highway from our 55 and over community. And it was an emergency that had to get built really fast. And the first people that went in were seniors and women. And the experience of meeting them and talking to them and working with them and helping them build their garden and paint their little pallet homes and making them feel safe and comfortable, and the whole community was just so inspiring that when we moved over here to get away from the fires, the first thing I sought out was that same kind of feel and type of work. And I was only here, I think, for 3 months when I saw Kelly, 3 or 4 months when I saw Kelly's post, and I'm like, well, there it is. It's right in front of me. And she's right here in my neighborhood. So it worked out perfectly. Wow. And since then we've pretty much, we're halfway to world domination, but we're moving on.
Hi again. Thanks for listening to part 1 of my interview with Kelly and Andy from Grow. Find them on the web at growconcord.com. I forgot to mention in my intro that the picnic I went to honoring the lives of the homeless who have passed away was actually put on by Heather, one of my previous interviews on this podcast. If you know of any unhoused individuals that would like to be interviewed, or you would like to submit an interview yourself, please reach out to us through the website, understandingtheunhoused.org. Click on the contact button, send us a quick message. We'll get back to you as soon as we can and get things moving. Also, while on the site, if you're feeling generous, please click on the donate button. There is a very low overhead for this podcast, but there are costs involved, especially when Wendy and I go out to the unhoused community. We always want to have supplies with us, and funds are always welcome to help that along. Thanks again for listening. I hope after hearing these stories, you will have a little more compassion, a little more empathy, and a better understanding of the unhoused.